Hello everyone, and welcome to the first micro lecture of the semester. In this first set of mini lectures, we're going to begin discussing what exactly drugs are and their importance in society today. As you're probably aware, drug use in this country has been pretty constant in both a historical and modern sense. Humans have always looked for ways to cure illnesses and treat their pain, whether that pain is physical or mental in nature. Because of this, there has been a huge market for the production of drugs, and there's a lot of money involved in both regulated and black markets. Throughout the semester, we're going to be focusing on many hot button topics as we discuss legalization of certain drugs and a push to decriminalize others. However, it is important to note that although we will focus on many illegal drugs, not everything we will discuss will be considered harmful in terms of the general context of drug use. There is a wide breadth of uses and associated stereotypes or stigmas with many of these, but we will discuss what that really means in the broader context of the drug industry, big pharma, and illegal markets as well. We know that everyone uses drugs in some capacity. You get sick, you go to the doctor, you get an antibiotic to cure your earache. You've had a hard day at work and you go home and have a drink. You get in a car accident and doctors put you on morphine to help with pain management while you're at the hospital. There are different degrees and uses for drug use. It is important to note that no one is immune to drug abuse. Drug use is an equal opportunity affliction. Drug users are found in all occupations and professions, at all income and social class levels, and in all age groups. Even though we all use drugs, there are different avenues for drug use based on income. For example, if you're poor and you want to drink, you might have to discriminate a little less against the type of alcohol you want to drink. However, if you're rich, you can choose to drink only that 40-year-old scotch. But it also extends to illegal drugs as well. For example, if you are a low-income cocaine user, you might have to purchase crack rather than powder cocaine. But the bottom line is that drug use and drug abuse does not discriminate. Rich, poor, young, old, black, white, male, female, it doesn't matter. At some point in time, we will all use drugs, but how we react and come to depend on them are different experiences for everyone. At some point in our lives, we all identify as drug users, whether they are in the legal or illegal sense. But how and why we use drugs might vary based on the individual. Our responses to those drugs are based on a few different factors. First, we have biological, genetic, and pharmacological factors. Substance abuse and addiction involve biological and genetic factors. The pharmacology of drug use focuses on how the ingredients of a particular drug affect the body and the nervous system, and in turn, a person's experience with a particular drug. For instance, certain drugs give you a high faster than others. The way that you take the drug will have a different effect on your body. Do you have any allergic reactions to the drug? For instance, I could never become addicted to Vicodin because it causes a very strong allergic reaction in me. I learned that the hard way after I had my wisdom teeth taken out years ago. There are also cultural factors to consider. How do societal views, determined by culture and tradition, affect our initial approach to and use of a drug? For Native Americans, smoking and drinking peyote is an action of cultural significance. If you travel to Europe, there is a more lax attitude toward drinking alcohol compared to here in the United States. The legal drinking age is lower than 21, and wine is commonly consumed with lunch and dinner daily. In terms of social factors, what are the specific reasons why a drug is taken? Are you drinking for fun or socially? Are you drinking because you're depressed? Are you drinking because your home life is rough and you're self-medicating? Are you taking the pills because the doctor prescribed them to you? Or are you taking them because you're addicted to pain pills at this point? There are more socially acceptable reasons for drug use and the drugs that are being used. Drinking at a bar on a Friday night is more acceptable than drinking at a bar at 7 a.m. on a Wednesday, for example. In terms of contextual factors, We're looking at how the physical surroundings, whether we're at a music concert, a bar, nightclubs, a fraternity or sorority party, how does that setting affect the amount of drug use? Do you drink at concerts or at happy hour with your friends at a house party? Do you smoke pot only when someone buys it and brings it to a gathering? These environments also have an effect on how the drugs might make you feel. Later in the semester, we're going to talk about situational factors and how you might feel drunker at the party after four beers than you would at home drinking those same 4 beers. The music, the party atmosphere, and the social acceptability all have a role in how our bodies respond to the situation. So which one means the most? Which is the most impactful? That depends, doesn't it? We'll spend the entire semester trying to answer this question and apply it to different types of drugs and situations. But before we answer that question, we need to spend a little more time trying to define and identify what drugs really are. So what do we mean by a drug? This means literally anything that modifies or distorts our bodies and our minds. So what does it mean to distort or modify? It means that it changes it in some way. So how does the drug Lipitor change your body? It lowers your cholesterol. What about NyQuil? It helps to calm your cough and helps you to sleep so that you can get better when you have a cold. NyQuil is very mild, but there are stronger cough medicines out there that you might need a prescription for. There are some cough medicines with codeine in them. Of course, this does the same thing that NyQuil does, but on a much stronger level. And if you want to take it further, you can even mix your codeine cough syrup with other things and come up with items like purple drink, scissor, or lean, promethazine with codeine, and a clear beverage such as Sprite or gin. If you're feeling fancy, you can even throw a Jolly Rancher in and let it dissolve. We know that Lil Wayne is often accredited with this concoction, but he probably isn't taking this for his cough. Drinking this will slow his body movements. It might cause hallucinations, drowsiness, and sleepiness. On the flip side, taking this has actually caused Lil Wayne to have seizures quite a bit. That's the downside to the psychoactive high for him. So what are psychoactive drugs? Anything that alters your nervous system and your brain patterns. It changes your perceptions of what is going on around you. If you remember a few years back, after taking bath salts, that drug caused a guy to eat the face of another man down in Miami. The Miami cannibal attack occurred on May 26, 2012, when Rudy Eugene assaulted Ronald Popo, a homeless man on the MacArthur Causeway in Miami, Florida. During the 18-minute encounter, which was filmed, Eugene had stripped himself nude and accused Popo of stealing his Bible, beat him unconscious, and then removed Popo's pants and a bit off most of his face, including the beard, his left eye, and left him blind in both eyes. The attack ended when Eugene was fatally shot by a Miami police officer. You can imagine the way that the bath salts altered Eugene's system was an instrumental factor in causing him to eat another man's face off. Psychoactive drugs fall into both licit and illicit categories. Licit drugs are considered legal and for the most part socially acceptable. Every morning I partake in licit psychoactive drug use as I drink my coffee. Other examples like this include tea, alcohol, and tobacco, both if you're over 21, and other over-the-counter drugs. Illicit drugs are illegal, but depending on who you talk to, could also be socially acceptable. Pot, for instance, is becoming the poster child for socially acceptable illicit drug use. But in some states, it's now licit drug use. So it depends on the circumstances. So far, no one has classified LSD or heroin as a licit drug, as they typically aren't perceived to have any sort of medicinal value. Even though some drugs are more socially acceptable than others, we do see that more people die annually due to licit drug use rather than illicit. Alcohol and tobacco products kill more people per year than all other illicit drugs combined. which is part of the argument for marijuana legalization since it is so difficult to overdose on marijuana. You have to really, really try hard to do it, and even then, there are no documented cases of overdose from marijuana on its own. You would get so sick that your body would purge the weed from your system first. But counter to that argument about marijuana is the gateway hypothesis. Gateway drugs are considered those that we think will lead to harder drug use. They are types of commonly used drugs that are believed to lead to the use of more powerful, mind-altering, and addictive drugs, such as hallucinogens, cocaine, crack, and heroin. If I drink alcohol and smoke cigarettes, the concern is that I will start using pot next. Once I'm done using pot, or it's maybe not as effective as it used to be, then I'll start snorting coke or shooting up heroin. Something smaller and less dangerous leads to the use of bigger, harder drugs. But how much validity is there to the gateway hypothesis? Do these smaller drugs lead to bigger or harder drug use? No. The only thing that pot leads to is an increased appetite and maybe some bigger pants. But there is no credible scientific evidence that marijuana use leads to harder drug use. The overwhelming body of medical and scientific research does not lend any credibility to the gateway hypothesis, which was one of the center points of drug prevention programs such as DARE. The biggest gateway drug that we need to be concerned about are the prescription painkillers and how those have led us to the current opioid crisis we find ourselves in, something we will discuss later this semester. This concludes the first micro lecture for this module. In the next micro lecture, we're going to begin exploring the different types of drug use, an initial discussion about abuse and addiction. So join me next time for our short discussion on these topics.